as today moves on. So today is day one of a 3-day event that we've called Purpose and Profits. Today's going to be all about clarifying your life purpose and clarifying your professional purpose that really becomes motivational fuel for your long-term advantage. So successful people do one of many things, and I know that all of you are successful. You being here today is proof enough. One thing that they do is they take the time to define and clearly understand and explore their purpose and mix that with passion and build their lifestyle in alignment with their life purpose. Today will be foundational to this. Eleanor Roosevelt, one of the most decorated first ladies of the United States, said, "The purpose of life is to live it, to taste experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and without fear for a newer and richer experience." And I believe this was part of Eleanor's purpose. I have a question for you. What is your purpose? Eleanor lived her life purpose by serving in the Red Cross during World War I, in which she helped the wounded. She brought them food and just gave them some emotional support. She established the Valkill Industries, which was a company that became a small factory to provide supplemental income to local farming families. And she was a vocal in her support of the African American civil rights movement. And amongst hundreds of other things, she co-chaired the Office of Civilian Defense, or OCD, during World War II. And I believe she was the first woman to do so. So that's how Eleanor lived her purpose. And as these 3 days unfold, I want you to start asking yourself, how can you live out your soul purpose? Over these 3 days, we're going to help you answer 3 very powerful and distinct questions. One of them is, what is my purpose-aligned monetizable work idea, which we'll dive into tomorrow. Then next, how do I make money doing what I love? How do I actually take my idea and start generating a respectable income and profit from that idea? And today, which we're going to dive deeply into, is what is my professional life purpose? So let's send it. If we look at the 3 questions that I just posed here, and ultimately what we're looking for is the intersect of these 3. Our purpose, our business idea or career idea that can be monetized into a plan of action. Ultimately, we're looking for the answer to the intersect of these 3. And I believe that after the 3 days of this event unfold, you'll have a lot of clarity around what the middle of this sphere looks like. So today we're going to dive into the neuroscience of curiosity, passion, and purpose, and how those fuel your long-haul motivational advantage, and actually give you the fuel to turn the life of your dreams into a reality. And you'll leave today with a clearly defined monetizable life purpose statement. And as these days unfold, I want you to kind of think, keep this formula in the forefront of your mind. You might even write this down in your journal right now. This is why plus what plus who plus how plus when equals you creating your dream life. This might sound a little bit woo-woo or maybe even mathematical to you, but trust that this formula works. Today, we're going to be tapping into the why, which is the foundational energetic component to you creating the life of your dreams. And in day 2 and 3, we'll be tapping into what, who, and how. I'd like to give you a quick intro of who I am. Again, my name is Scott Raleigh. I'm co-founder of Peak Prosper. Over the last decade plus of my career, I've worked with hundreds of businesses and I've helped them grow. Several of them just from a little idea to becoming multiple 6-figure businesses. And one company I even helped grow from 1.2 to $2.4 million. So I've been doing a lot of this work over the last decade plus. I've become incredibly curious about the intersection of mindset, entrepreneurship, nature, and how these 3 elements intersect to influence peak performance. Naturally, I'm a leader, and I have a knack for digital systems optimization. Mike's probably over there just nodding his head. I'm the Lego guy. I love just bringing all the components of things together and seeing how they work. Currently, I live my dream life here in Whitefish, Montana, with my wife, our puppy Nyla, and a snowman called Jackson the Snowman Ripper. This is legitimately a snowman that we built that went for a ski trip down the run. I want to share my path to purpose. It was a long and arduous adventure. It involved starting several businesses, ultimately for the sake of making money, purely for profit. The first business I started was a lawn aeration company, which I grew to 150 clients by the time I was 16 years old. And then that evolved into a woodwork refinishing company, which I used to pay my way through college. And then I got into digital marketing. I worked at several corporations where I sharpened those skills and then started a small consultancy practice. Some pictures from when I worked in the corporate world, working at a marketing agency called G5 in Bend, Oregon, again, really for the sake of money. And then going on to work at Dakine. What happened during my corporate tenure was this feeling like my soul was being sucked out of me. Like I just wasn't living my life purpose. And ultimately, in my last weeks at Dakine, I slipped into a very deep depression, just knowing that I was meant for so much more, but not really knowing how to go do it. What I'd done over the last 2 months at Dakine was doodled in my journal about how miserable and dismal the job was, knowing that it was possible for me to do something more, but just feeling stuck and not knowing what to do. I left Dakine, and on the first day that I left, I pinned it to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where I started what became a 4-month ski voyage. And I paid for this voyage through various digital marketing consulting work that I picked up along the way. When I returned from that, my foot quite literally just erupted, and I was unable to walk, run, hike, bike, ski, let alone put any weight on my foot. And this foot injury lasted for about 12 months. It was never clearly diagnosed as to what exactly happened to me, but it brought me right back to where I was when I was working in the corporate world. And while painful and long, this journey awakened me to my sole purpose, which I hope that you discover today. To use my leadership skills, process-oriented mindset, and passion for adventure to guide and empower high-performance teams and individuals to the discovery of meaningful work and the life of their dreams. It led me to writing a book and discovering the intersect of my skills, passions, and purpose, and ultimately founding Peak Prosper and recovering and hiking to Everest Base Camp. Mike Morelli, my co-founder here at Peak, says your true purpose is discovered when you find the problems that you enjoy having and solving, problems that have a positive impact on humanity and other people. I'd like to talk briefly about purpose as a source of neurochemical fuel for flow states before we dive into actually how we discover purpose. Purpose is one of many flow triggers that's designed to drive your brain into the present moment. And we'll talk about several flow triggers over the next 3 days, all of which have at least one of these 3 commonalities. They drive dopamine, which is a feel good neurochemical, norepinephrine, which triggers a little bit of anxiety and excitement that actually triggers you to take action, or it lowers our cognitive load, frees up space in your mind. For example, defining your goals that align with a business that you want to start. So let's talk now about 2 key elements, passion and purpose. Passion is very much an egocentric pursuit of the self. things that we do out of pure joy, things that we enjoy, things that we're interested about. And purpose really becomes other-centric. This is when we step beyond the bounds of the self and step into living a life for a bigger cause. And as a result of doing this, what we do is we naturally attract the resources, the support, and the involvement from other people to be a part of your cause. This is where we start to create opportunities that are beyond our current realm of possibility, things that we could have never even imagined start to happen. Now, both passion and purpose are critical for us to create the life of our dreams. Passion by no means is a bad thing, nor is curiosity and living a bit of an egocentric life, because it's fuel, as we'll talk about in a second, for living our life on purpose. And both of these are neurochemical mechanisms to drive dopamine and norepinephrine to drive us into that flow state. Let's talk about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation next. Extrinsic is really us just doing something because of something we are going to get as a result. It's a means to an end. For example, going to work just simply for a paycheck is an extrinsic motivating factor, ultimately just driven by the outcome. What am I going to get as a result of what I am doing? And what we'll see in a second on a graphical representation is that this type of fuel diminishes over time. Although it diminishes, it's really good for us to get things going. These extrinsic drivers are good to get our brain to get something going. Whereas intrinsic motivation is ultimately us just doing the work for the sake of the work, falling in love with the process. The activity becomes the means for joy and reward and fulfillment. And ultimately, that creates a positive feeding feedback loop so that your intrinsic fuel increases over time. And this is good for the long haul so that you don't burn out on your idea or whatever you might be working on. Intrinsic motivation involves performing a task again because it's just personally rewarding to you. Just simply doing something for the sake of enjoying it and forgetting about time and or the monotony of doing that thing. Extrinsic motivation involves completing a task, like I'd said, or exhibiting a behavior just simply because of what you're going to get as a result of doing that thing. And the main difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation is that intrinsic motivation comes from within you, and extrinsic motivation comes from outside. Again, what am I going to get? While both types of motivation are important, they have different effects on how you work. And if we look at these two sources of fuel on a graph, we look at motivational fuel on the y-axis and time on the x-axis, you'll notice that extrinsic motivation dies out as time goes on, and your intrinsic motivation, if you've taken the time to invest in building your intrinsic stack, which we're about to talk about, will increase over time so that you don't run out of the fuel that's necessary to keep going for the long haul. So let's talk about stacking your intrinsic motivation, that intrinsic fuel. There's three key elements that we work with our clients on at Peak Prosper to help them build this stack. The first one being self-awareness, where we deep dive into your natural skills, strengths, and passions. We're going to touch on some of that today. And then crafting your massively transformative vision. This is your vision for the future that is in alignment with your life purpose. And these two elements are some of what create your intrinsic stack so that you can start just doing work for the love of work and building massive momentum around creating the life of your dreams. And as a result of building this stack, you experience a skyrocket in your performance, more time just spent in a flow state, and effort becomes effortless. This feeling that your work is just happening with effortless ease. So if we look at really the 5 core elements of intrinsic motivation with purpose at the end, we're trying to build clarity around our purpose today, which is fuel for the long haul. First, what we see is autonomy. And autonomy is ultimately just the freedom to pursue a life in alignment with your life purpose. And then next we have mastery. It's taking the time to master the skills that are necessary to actually create a life, business, or career that is in alignment with your purpose. And then next we have curiosity, which is just naturally being a curious human being about, for example, how other people think, why they do certain things, how businesses work, how certain things function. And then the last element is passion, just having a passion for life and having clarity around the things that bring you the most joy, fulfillment, and satisfaction. Now, these four core elements just fuel into living our life purpose. Now, I want to give you a word for warning. Not taking the time to clearly define your life purpose will ultimately lead you to feeling at some point like you're wandering a purposeless path, just kind of drifting through life. Life is just becoming what life becomes for you. Your goals may not be as rewarding. I've seen this happen to so many people where they accomplish these incredibly challenging feats and they say, Scott, this just wasn't as rewarding as I thought it was going to be, because they didn't make sure that that goal aligned with their purpose. And your motivation will be futile, as we saw, because you will ultimately be relying on extrinsic motivators instead of intrinsic motivating factors, which is your fuel for the long haul. But living a life on purpose means that you'll be doing what you love and what you're passionate about more times than not. And naturally, you'll just be helping people. You won't even really have to think about it, because that will be a part of your purpose. And the opportunities, people, and resources to create what you most desire will just simply start to show up. Might sound a little woo-woo, but trust me. Purpose has shaped me, and I hope that it begins to shape you after today. It's shaped my lifestyle, where I live, what I do on a day-to-day, the personal growth that I invest in, my business, investments, relationships, the adventures that I go on in the mountains and the outdoors surrounding the 4 mountain ranges of our home, and ultimately my career, which is very much just writing, coaching, and teaching other people. But one thing you don't have to do, which I have done, you don't have to become a ski bum and go ski some of the gnarliest lines in the world. You don't have to start the wrong business. You don't have to read hundreds of books or experience a body-breaking event. You don't have to hike to Mount Everest or write your own book. And you don't have to start a business to discover your life purpose. There's 2 simple steps that we're going to go through today. We're going to answer the purpose clarity questions. And then after we've done that, we're going to apply the professional purpose formula that we've created at Peak Prosper to craft your purpose statement. If that's not enough P's for you, then I don't know what would be. So the first step we're about to dive into here, and you're going to want your notebook and your pen handy, are the purpose clarity questions. And the first question that I have for everybody that's tuned in today is this, and I'm super excited to see the responses that come out of this question. If you want to just start thinking about your answer to this question and typing them in the chat box of this Zoom room, that would be awesome. When have you felt the most alive and energized in the last year? And if the last year is too big of a time frame, maybe in the last month, 3 months, or 6 months, what were you doing? Who were you with? What are some of the details about that experience that made you feel so alive? For me, most recently, has been leading friends safely through the mountains and enjoying the complexities of being alone in the wilderness in a mountainous environment and navigating complex terrain safely. Additionally, on top of that is leading a 5-day workshop for peak performers and getting married. So as you think about your answer to this question, just go ahead and start dropping them into the chat box. I'd be so stoked to read some of the moments in your life here over the last year that you've felt the most alive. And I know we got 13 people here today, so there we go. We got them they're starting to come in now. Aaron says travel to Tulum. I'll have to look that up. Hearing the impact of my work on others. Awesome, man. I love that. I give everybody a couple more minutes to type their answers into the chat box. We've got a couple more questions, guys, and these are really important to actually applying what we're talking about today. There we go, Jackson. Road tripping around Hawaii. Awesome, dude. When first meeting Hannah. Camping, hiking, exploring. Same here. I love the wilderness ESP forests. So guys, I would also suggest you write this question down in your journal. Something that you can revisit here later today after you kind of digest everything that we go through. And I'm going to take us to the next question now. What did you love doing when you were a kid that you've stopped doing? For me, building sandcastles, playing with Legos, and getting muddy. I mean, like really muddy. What are some things that you stopped doing that you were doing as a kid? Hannah said the road trip that we just did was her answer to the previous question, with Mowgli, the ambulance, to get caught here in Seattle. The maiden voyage. Yeah, guys, so take a couple minutes to answer this next question. These are really key to tapping into and clarifying our purpose statement, which we're going to get to here in a second. What did you love doing when you were a kid that you stopped doing? It could even be like some TV shows you stopped watching. Stopped drawing pictures. Stopped doodling. Stopped playing with remote control cars and building tree forts in the woods. What did you stop doing? Drawing and exploring, writing mysteries, climbing big things and falling off them. Aaron, oh man, I fell off some big things too. Manuel says, when I'm learning from different cultures and helping and guiding other people to confront real life situations. Incredible, man. Okay, guys, so I would definitely jot this question down as well in your notebook. What did you love doing when you were a kid that you stopped doing? Building forts in the woods, Caleb. Yeah, dude. I built a crazy tree fort. Organized sports, Jackson. I stopped that too, man. Trampoline, Mike. I used to jump on the trampoline for hours. Awesome, guys. So now if we look at these first two questions that I asked you, what are some themes that you see consistent during these experiences? And themes could be thematic in terms of what you were doing, how you were feeling, who you were with. Sometimes who we're with is equally important as what we're doing. For example, when I go skiing by myself, it just doesn't feel the same as when I'm out in the mountains with a big group of great friends. And some themes that are pretty consistent across my answers to the first two questions are leading large groups of people and getting dirty in the outdoors or building things. And we'll talk a little bit about how these themes have translated into what I'm doing today and maybe what you're doing today. So what are some themes that you see consistent across your answers to those first two questions that I asked? Those first two questions being, when have you felt the most alive and energized in the last year? And what did you love doing when you were a kid that you stopped doing? Jackson says play. Yes. Caleb, nature. Hannah, silliness. Oh, this is so fun. Aaron, exploration, creating content and telling stories. Great stuff. This is great. So jot those words down, guys, because you're going to want to come back to these as well later today. And probably write this question down. So this will be fun. Now, if you look at your responses to the last couple of questions I've asked, can you think of a way to make a living from these experiences? And guys, no idea is off limits today. In fact, everything goes. And if you think you can't come up with an idea, just remember that there's a millionaire somewhere in the United States, I think he's from the US at least, who was the developer of the pool noodle, those silly little noodles that we swim around with. So what ideas do you have that are in alignment with some of those most joyful times that you've had in your life that you could actually earn a living from? And I'll share a couple that I have written down here below with you. These are just ideas that I'll probably turn into a reality someday. Creating an adventure guiding business, having a business that builds some kind of system to help people discover their purpose, selling a new book, which means I have to write a new book, leading conferences and seminars with thousands of people, leading adventure retreats to help others discover their untapped potential. So I just love to hear some ideas that you guys have. Jackson says the pool noodle. Yeah, it's sometimes the simplest idea that reaches the most people. Manuel's answer to the last question. So I'm going to share Manuel's answer to the last question as you guys share some of your ideas that might align with your purpose. He says, people from different cultures, understanding them and understanding how our differences can make us unique and at the same time similar to each other were some of the themes that he saw across his responses to the first few questions. So I'm sure that some of you guys have some ideas. Would love to hear them. Corporate speaking from Hannah. Incredible. Corporate speaking. Hannah, you should look up Google Talks. There's some pretty incredible stuff on there. It's kind of like TED Talks. Also people that just go and actually speak at Google. Aaron, finding unique and impactful nonprofits / causes around the world and get them the funding and support they need through volunteer support and content marketing. Incredible. So like a content marketing agency for nonprofits. That would be cool. Awesome, man. What else do we got? I promise I'm not going to steal your ideas, guys. I got plenty of ideas already. Jackson, coordinating and running adventure travel retreats. Epic, dude. What else do we got, guys? I'll give you a couple more minutes. Again, I told you, I promise I'm not going to steal your idea. All right, let's keep cruising here. Hannah, food truck. Awesome. I made a whole business plan in college for this business food truck idea called Barbecue to Go. I don't know if the domain's available still, but it was when I was in college. Next question I have for everybody. So what global problems are you passionate about? And they can be really simple. You could say like mental health or workplace fulfillment or something else. But the more clarity, the better, because the more clarity you have, the easier it will become for you to find people and resources that are in alignment with that global problem that you want to be a part of solving. And some examples that I'm passionate about, things that I care about, things that I think about consistently are water quality and distribution solutions in Africa, the American hunger crisis. That might sound kind of crazy, but it's true. In highly populated, abundant cities. Another thing that I'm passionate about, the global work fulfillment crisis and undertapped potential in peak performers. I believe that within all of us, there is undertapped potential that when we unleash, incredible things happen. And then lastly, the underserved mental health crisis in small mountain towns across the globe. So would love to hear some answers to this question, guys. I promise I only have one more question for you. What global problems are you most passionate about? See, they don't ask you these questions in school, guys, so it's kind of crazy. People don't know of their power and ability. From Hannah. Aaron, the revolution is in the mind, so helping people find and practice mindfulness and finding their center. Yes. Remember, guys, don't just type these in the chat. I would jot these in your journal. because they represent some of life's coming attractions for you. Financial education. Get Mike going on financial education. That could be a whole event. Problem from Manuel. Energy accessibility. Opportunity to access education for everybody. Caleb, what's up, man? Understanding people with opposing opinions. Incredible, dude. All right, guys, so let's dive into step 2 of this process. Another response. I'm gonna share a couple more responses before we go into step 2. Mental, spiritual health, and homelessness. Matt says challenged athletes and holistic medicine. Awesome, Matt. Matt, check out this organization called Dream Adaptive Sports. I just went to their annual fundraiser event. It was incredible. And that's exactly what they focus on, is helping challenged athletes. So step 2 is crafting your purpose statement. It's taking your responses from these last 4 questions that I've asked and kind of merging or molding them together into one sentence that resonates with you. And the important thing is that this sentence resonates with you. And the first step in doing this is to list 2 to 3 of your unique strengths and skills. And as you're thinking about what those 2 to 3 unique strengths and skills are, you can type them into the chat, you can write them in your notebook, or you can write this question down, write this little element of the this exercise down in your notebook. So again, just take a moment to list 2 to 3 of your unique strengths and skills. And if you want to, again, just drop them in the chat box so everybody can get some inspiration from you. For me, 2 to 3, I guess more like 6 of my unique skills or strengths. I'm a natural leader. I have a process-oriented mindset. I'm adventurous. I'm a good communicator, compassionate, inspiring, creative, and I'm an expert skier. So those are just some of my skills and strengths. And I would love to hear what some of your guys' skills and strengths are as well before we go into the next element of creating the purpose sentence. And they can be simple. Aaron, positive energy, storytelling, public speaking. Yes. Again, I'd write all these down in your journal as well, guys. All right, I'm going to keep cruising here, but if you guys want to take a moment to write your unique skills and strengths into the chat, that would be awesome. Jackson says conductor of energy, leader, motivator, inspirer, another empathetic, good listener, excellent communicator, grounded. Awesome. Awesome. So the next step in this, and the reason I asked you, what did you stop doing that you did when you were a kid? When have you felt the most alive? Is because we need to become very conscious of our passions. And you might think, well, I know what I'm passionate about. But until we take the time to really write it down and review it on a consistent basis and integrate it into our life purpose, it's harder to live a life in alignment with that. So what are 1 to 2 things that you're passionate about in that bring in some of your natural skills and strengths? And ideally, these aren't your primary, what we call flow state activities. For me, like a primary flow state activity is skiing, rock climbing, I actually skateboard a little bit. These are things that naturally drop me into a flow state, but they're more secondary things like coaching or speaking or teaching. So again, if you guys want to share a couple of things that you're passionate about or ways that you enjoy expressing your skills and strengths in the chat, or just write this element of the sentence that we're crafting in your journal, that would be awesome. I'll just give everybody a minute to chime in here. Giving advice is one. Awesome. I'm going to keep cruising here. So I went back and looked at a book I was reading back in 2015 as I was putting this presentation together. And I answered this question back in 2015. This is 7 years ago. At the time I was working at G5, that marketing agency in Bend, Oregon, ultimately for the sake of a paycheck. I mean, I was tuning some incredible skills, but ultimately I was doing work for a paycheck. And the question was, if your world was perfect right now, I mean, if you're living your dream life, you're in your dream career, you're running your dream business, if it was perfect right now, how would people be interacting? What would people be doing? I'm really excited to hear you guys' response to this question. Describe your perfect world in one sentence. This doesn't have to be some multi-paragraph essay or anything, but just one simple sentence. What does your perfect world look like? Just like what comes to mind right away when you see this question? And back in 2015, 7 years ago, when I was just working this paycheck job, I wrote in my journal, everyone is joyful while doing work and things they love to do with their time. And I was talking with Mike last week. I was like, Mike, dude, you won't believe what was in my journal from 7 years ago, dude. And if you look at our website, you'll see that what I wrote 7 years ago is in alignment with the business that we're running now. So I'd love to hear what your guys' perfect world looks like to you. And Mike says, adventurous men are turning the dreams in their mind into a physical reality. Aaron says, people are treating each other with kindness and working together to help each other grow, succeed, and find joy. Incredible, guys. So now the last element of this exercise is to take the parts from 1 through 3 and combine them into a single purpose statement. And I'll give you guys plenty of time to write this formula down in your notebook because this is kind of a personal process. It might take you more time than you have today in day 1 of this challenge. But the first 3 elements, I'm just going to go back again in case anyone was just tuning in. With step 2, to craft your purpose sentence. The first question was to just list 2 to 3 of your natural strengths and skills. And then list 1 to 2 of your passions or ways that you enjoy expressing your skills and strengths. And then just come up with 1 simple sentence. Again, if anybody else has come up with their sentence that describes the perfect world, please share it. I find those so inspiring. Describe your perfect world in 1 sentence. And then combine these into your purpose statement. And this is the professional purpose statement formula that we've developed here at Peak Prosper. And you might want to just write this down in your notebook and revisit it after today's workshop. The formula is my purpose is to use, and then in brackets, we have your strength or your unique quality or your skill. Many of you guys shared some of those in the chat, like leadership, public speaking, writing, and another one of your unique skills and strengths to action verb and action verb. And I'm going to share some examples with you guys here in a second. Action verb could be like inspire or empower or teach. Like, what is the action that you take that leverages your unique skill and strength? Who it helps, which is the demographic of people that you want to have a positive impact on. This helps us bring in some of that intrinsic fuel, something that becomes a cause bigger than yourself. And ultimately, what is that major cause, that major global problem that you're passionate about? So if you want to just copy this down or reference the recording, which we'll share with you guys after today's workshop, I would definitely do that. Some example purpose statements. I'm just going to share, I think, 2 or 3 of them here with you. Again, mine is my purpose is to use my leadership skills. This is one of my natural skills. Process-oriented mindset, strengths, and passion for adventure, what I'm passionate about, to action verb guide and empower high performance teams and individuals who it helps, to the discovery of meaningful work, big thing that I care about, and the life of their dreams. And here's some others. My mission is to be deeply present, enjoy creating opportunities and leading myself and others to new levels of potential each and every day, to bring opportunities for meaningful work to every person on the planet, to create clean water resources for every person on the planet. So again, that formula, you can use the whole thing, you can use certain elements of it. The important thing is to come up with a distinct purpose sentence that resonates with you. It doesn't have to fit in the confines of this formula here, but you want something that becomes that fuel, that intrinsic driver for you, that reason to start a business or shift careers or do something that's more meaningful and impactful to you, and as a result, others. Remember, helping others just becomes a byproduct of living our life on purpose. Or just listen to your intuition. You might be thinking, Scott, this just seems too systematic to me. I'm more of an intuitive person. I like to just sit quiet in meditation and listen for the answers to come to me. And you could just go sit quietly with your journal and your pen and just ask one simple yet powerful question. What is my sole purpose that I am meant to carry out while I live here on earth? Once you have your sole purpose clearly defined, it's important to stay on purpose, to begin to act, live, work, learn, and grow in alignment with your life purpose so that you can live your greatest life and have the greatest impact on humanity while you're here. And I challenge everyone to read your purpose daily once you have it defined, so that you can remind your conscious and your subconscious mind of why you're here and why you're doing what you're doing. And you'll have that question mark as to whether or not something is meant for you or not. Create an MTV, whether you decide to join Peak Prosper or use some of our free resources on our website to help you create a massively transformative vision aligned with your purpose. But this is really the act of clearly defining what you want in your life, answering that question, what the hell do I want to do, be, and have in this one life that I get to live? Create a business or career pivot to align with your purpose. Don't stay stuck where you are, just being in something that isn't in alignment with what you deeply desire. Actually go out and start living a life in alignment with your purpose. And some questions that you might ask once you've clearly defined that purpose, whether by applying our purpose formula or just sitting quietly and listening to your intuition. Is it huge? I mean, does it kind of scare you a little bit because it's like an Everest size purpose? Is it world changing? Will it, as a result of you living out your life purpose, have a positive impact on our planet? Is there a cause bigger than me behind this purpose? Again, remember, our purpose is intrinsically and extrinsically driven, meaning that it's for us and it's for others. Does it excite me when I read it aloud? Like, am I actually stoked to wake up and go work and live in alignment with this purpose? And is my profession currently in alignment with this? So we spend so much of our time working that it's absolutely crazy to not build a career or a business in alignment with what our soul most desires. As we wrap up today, I'd like to give you guys a couple of resources that you might reference to not just define your life purpose, but to go create the life of your dreams. And these are 4 books that have had a tremendously powerful impact on my life and my career. The first one is Jack Canfield's Success Principles. This is basically the Bible of personal development. The Passion Test by Janet Atwood, which is the effortless path to discovering your life purpose. And then Stephen Kotler's book, The Art of Impossible. And then I got to throw my book in here, Bridge, Define, Build, and Ignite the Life of Your Dreams. And you can find all 4 of these books on Amazon. Some incredible resources for you to jot down. So with that, I'd like to wrap up today. We talked about the neuroscience of purpose and how that can, if you take the time to clearly define it and create a statement that resonates for you, become your motivational fuel for the long haul. And we gave you a couple of tools that you can implement to go and create that purpose sentence. The first one being the Peak Prosper purpose method. And the second one is just to sit quietly in meditation and listen to your intuition to discover that main reason that you're here on this planet, your burning, driving why. So thank you guys. Thank you everybody for showing up today. I'm happy to stick around for